Hello everyone, it's Tuesday night and that means it's time for more APPF1 Tier 2. We are into the second half of the season now and we're here for round 5 in France, the Paul Ricard circuit. Often disdained by the casual F1 fan for being a boring track that produces boring races, and it's very true. In real life, it can often produce boring races, but in the virtual world that we find ourselves in today, especially with APPF1 Tier 2. Those kinds of boring races are much less frequent, and we do get some bangers around this track, so I'm very much looking forward to this. It looks like Krauser is the first to get out on track. Needs a good performance today in qualifying, as he's been... It's not been his best season so far, I think it's fair to say. A far cry from the Krauser of a few seasons ago, but he'll be hoping to get himself at least a little bit back on the map today, but he's going to need a good qualifying for that, and he's been finding that pretty tough as of late. His race pace has been, it's still been towards the back, but it's been up with the pack, but qualifying has not been his strong point at all this season, so hopefully he can get in a nice decent lap around this circuit today. In the news is the fact that both LB and Robsu are unable to race today. Robsu being unable to race is the biggest kicker, because there will always talk about LB not finishing out the season, but Robsu not being able to make today or next week, apparently in Monaco, means that he is all but out of this championship fight. So I think we might be down to a 2-horse race in Tier 2, unfortunately, due to attendance. For the Drivers' Championship, and the Constructors' Championship is pretty much done and dusted as a result of that. But Lawrence versus Jacko should still be a very good fight for the title. Jacko, the title holder at the moment, and Lawrence, the title winner from the season before. So it's going to be a battle of the Titans for the title this season. But Krauser, in the meantime, coming through Sector 1. Pretty neatly done from what I could see. Pretty nice through turns 1 and 2 and through the slow middle section of the sector, and now into the middle sector of the circuit. As he goes past one of the Alpines, who moves off to the side. Krauser not too bad, a little wide on exit from that in the end, as the British driver comes now into the final sector, 50.8 in Sector 2. We'll compare that to others as we go on. But Krauser now to this long, never-ending right-hander. Finally hits the apex and gets out on the exit. Was a little bit hesitant on the power, not wanting to spin, and just wanted to get a time on the board. But this is looking pretty neat and tidy from Krauser so far. We'll see what it turns out to be like in terms of time compared to everyone else, as he comes now to the last corner, hitting a bit too much of the curb there. I think he got oversteer out of the penultimate corner, which didn't help his line into the final corner. It's a 31-0 from Krauser to start us off. I think Lawrence is going to come in just behind and goes 0.03 slower than the Aston Martin driver. What about Scott coming across the line? It's pole position for now. 30.4 blows Krauser's time out of the water. A very nice opening lap from Scott. In fact, Rick is nowhere near either. He's also 0.6 down, but just about beats Krauser. So Scott in a league of his own at the moment, but of course plenty of people yet to set laps. Enchiladad just starting one. Darth Nihilus, of course, season 6 champion. He's not completely out of the running for the title, you know. He could be in with a shout if he keeps attendance up, but we'll see. Sumo Gilligan goes to P2, our shock pole position occupier from the last Grand Prix. He didn't manage to convert it to a win, just lost out on the podium on the final lap. to Jacko, who is now public enemy #1 as a result. But Sumo showing a lot of improvement lately, and today no different, just a 10th behind Scott at the moment. Here comes Darth Nihilus though. Is he going to retake pole position? Yes he is, 30.37. It's not by much though, and that lap from Scott looking better and better the more laps come in. I think Mania's just gone to P4 in the meantime. RJ goes half a tenth slower, beats Scott by 0.003 of a second to the front row as it stands. Enchilada Dad coming through, Jackalacco coming across the line, the defending champion. What can he do to start off with? It's a 30.7 P5. It's not bad at all from Jacko, who usually tends to struggle with qualifying this season. Enchilada Dad coming through into the final sector in the meantime as well. This is a driver who showed so much promise on his debut. I think it was Silverstone was his debut, and he was right up there looking for the race win. But ever since then, it's not really gone well for him, and that's clearly not a representative time, 2.2 seconds off the pace. So we'll see what he can do on his next run. Aces versus Kings, meanwhile, coming through the final sector. He sadly had to miss last race, which has put him a long way off in the championship as well, but not too far perhaps. I think the only way we're going to get anything other than a two-horse race for this championship is if Jacko and Lawrence both have an absolute stinker at some point in the next 4 Grand Prix. And with Monaco coming up next week, it could easily happen. But Aces coming to the line, it's looking pretty decent, and it is. P5 for the Haas driver, 0.2 down on pole position. I think Enchilada Dad's going to be the next to set a time. He's coming through Sector 2 now, 50.3, 1.5 seconds faster, and that's about half a second faster than what Krauser did in Sector 2. So this is looking pretty good from Enchilada Dad as he comes into the final sector. Just a few corners left to go, but they're some of the trickiest on the circuit. Really hard to get the power down and hit the apex properly, but Enchilada Dad has done exactly that. A traction control user by the look of that, but he's run out of ERS, which is going to cost him a lot of lap time on the final straight. As he comes around the final corner now, and there we go to the final straight, but out of ERS, and this is going to be a lot of straight line speed lost all the way to the line. It's still P4 though, so very promising for the Williams driver. It escapes me where Enchilada Dad is from now. The Irish Williams driver, that's it. But yeah, he's into P4, so a decent effort from him, and he needs a good race. He's not had the best of seasons so far, not as with the expectations that I think are put upon his shoulders after his debut was so impressive. Tia, meanwhile, coming through Sector 2, what's he going to do in this middle sector? 50.8 was Krauser's time. Enchilada Dad was a 50.3. Tia is a 50.7. So he's looking around about P9 or so as it stands. We'll see if he can do any better than that in the final sector. He's going to need to gain a lot of time. He misses the apex slightly of that corner, but it doesn't matter too much, as hitting the apex square on can often lead to oversteer on the exit of that corner. But Tia coming to the final couple corners now, very tricky. There's a lot of different lines you can take through that penultimate corner. To the inside, and now to the line. DRS open. What's it going to be? It's not going to challenge for pole, but it is P8. So he did manage to gain a lot of time in that final sector, and it's only 0.4 down on pole at the moment. It's looking like a very close qualifying right now. Less than half a second between the top 8 as Alex G looks to add to that. He's coming into the final sector now. I think that's Scott on an outlap in the Haas on the mini-map there. A few corners ahead, so we're right on board with Alex as he comes into the final couple of corners. Welcome to all 6 people watching, by the way. So I hope you enjoy the stream. Tier 2, always a good race, no matter how many are on the grid. Alex G comes to the line, and it's pole position for Alex, and he does a little wiggle across the line in celebration. A 30.2 is now the time to beat from the Mercedes driver, who was on the front row last week as well. So he's looking to keep up that form. Lawrence D at the moment in plumb last in this qualifying session. Jack Alacco just starting a lap right now. Rick on an out lap as well, as he lets Krauser through, who's on a lap. He needs a decent lap here, Krauser. Coming to the final corner, much less oversteer, doesn't hit the curb as well. That's much better through there than the last time we saw him through that last couple corners, and it's looking much better in terms of lap time. It's P2 for Krauser. That's so much better. That's exactly what he needed. At this point in the season, Darth Nihilus has gone to P3, and I think that was Lawrence up to P7. Look how close this qualifying is. My goodness me, half a second barely between the top 10, as Jack Alacco is on a lap at the moment trying to improve. Make it even less time between the top 10. Rick V as well coming through sector 1 right now. He's not on par, and in fact, no, it's not the lap that he wanted, so he's going to have to try again. Who else is on a lap? There's, I think, Aces. He's on an out lap. Mania on an out lap as well. What about the two Mercedes? Sumo just ahead of Alex, his teammate, who's just gone to provisional pole. So can Sumo better him? It was a Mercedes front row lockout last week. Can they repeat it today? Sumo's in P8 and he's yet only 3/10 off his teammate on pole position. What can he do across the line? It's P2. It's another front row lockout for Mercedes as it stands. Look at this. Jack Alacco, in the meantime, defending champion, goes to P3. He can't beat either of them, but it's a great effort from him. And now there's less than 4/10 covering the top 10. It could be less than 3/10 soon as Aces comes across, but he's not improving, so he backs out of that one. But less than 3/10 between the top 9 drivers. This is incredible stuff. Darth Nihilus coming to the line as well. Can he take pole position? Yes, he can. A 30.0. He beats out both Mercedes. What else? What else is in store for us in this thrilling qualifying session? RJ's improving as well. He comes to the line. The American driver, a 30.2. He splits the Mercedes, only 3 thousandths behind Alex G. Who else? Rick coming across the line, but he's starting another attempt. Mania as well. He's got a lot to improve on. He's 8.5 tenths down in P12 at the moment. In the Aston Martin, he comes to the last couple of corners. What can Mania do? He's been having a good run as of late. The last few weeks, he's had some good races. Even if his qualifying hasn't quite been up to scratch, but that's a lot better. Just slots in behind his teammate in P7 with a 30.4. Who else? Enchiladad on a lap. He's 2.5 tenths up in sector 1. He's 3.5 tenths up in sector 2. Good Enchiladad. Go onto the front row now. Maybe even challenge Darth for pole. His teammate. Maybe we were talking about a Mercedes front row lockout. It could be a Williams front row lockout at this rate. 4.5 minutes left to go in this session. Enchiladad coming through the final sector. Is RJ on a lap? No, he's not. What about Tier? He's on an out lap, so we'll keep on board with Enchiladad as he comes into the final corner. That looked a lot better than last time, although it's still a little bit tentative on the exit. He's used all his ERS, but he comes to the line. It is pole for Enchiladad. What a final sector that was from the Williams driver from Ireland. A 29.8, the first one to get into the 29s in this session. Can anyone beat that or get even close to that? Rick can't. He's into the pits again. He's really struggling in this qualifying session so far. Mania coming through the final sector. I don't think, no, he's not on a lap right now. I think he's going to head straight back to the pits. So it's all about Aces right now, the only man on track on a lap. 3.5 minutes to go in this session. There's very little time to make any kinds of improvements at this stage. Aces through the final corner. It's going to be a thrilling set of final runs in this session. Aces comes to the line. What's it going to be? It's pretty good. It's a 30.0, just 3.5 hundredths behind Darth. It's P3 for the Haas driver, and he's looking good to try and get himself back in this title race. Tier has invalidated, so no improvement for him either, and he is having a bad time at this circuit so far. I'm seeing in the chat that maybe Darth could have blocked Krauser as well in qualifying. There could have been some quali blocking going on. Just seeing that in the paddock on Discord. So that could result in a post-race penalty for Darth Nihilus, who's currently sitting in P2, 2/10 adrift of his teammate, which isn't a lot, but in the grand scheme of how this qualifying session has gone, it is a mountain. With how close everyone else is, I mean, look at this. There's less than a tenth between these four drivers. Then another quarter of a second to Krauser, another 3/4 of a second, a quarter of a tenth rather, to Mania, and then a 100th to Scott, who's on an outlap right now, just starting one, 700ths to Lawrence, and then a bigger gap to Tia and Rick, who still, I don't think either of them have really set competitive lap times yet that they'll be happy with. So we'll see if they can get something on the board. Scott, though, coming through Sector 1, he's the only man on a lap on the whole track right now. He's coming through Sector 1. We'll see if he's improving as he comes past the sector line now. And yeah, he's 4/10 up. What a first set. So many people that could challenge for pole here today. He's got DRS open now through the long DRS straight. We're going to see a lot of overtakes here in the race, but Scott coming to the left right-hander. This is notoriously tricky, these two corners, but Scott's navigated them fairly well. Misses the apex of the right-hander, but I don't think he'll be too unhappy with that. He's up to the line. He's 3.5 tenths up, so he's lost half a tenth or so in the middle sector on his previous best. So we'll see if he can gain it back in the final sector here of his final run. Enchilada and Aces staying put in the pit lane, so everyone else is going to have a go to try and beat them. And honestly, the way this quali is going, I wouldn't be surprised to see Aces down out of even the top 6 once all is said and done. But Scott coming to the final corner, he's given it his best effort here. DRS open all the way to the line, 30 seconds to go, so this is his last attempt to the line for Scott. It's a 30.1, he slots into the second row just behind his teammate, but will he stay there? That's the question. We've got Scott and Krauser and Mania starting out laps. Lawrence as well starting a lap. Who's that in the Red Bull? RJ starting a lap. Tia about to start a lap. Does he have enough time? I don't think he does. No, he doesn't. Tia is going to be consigned to P12 at best. It could be P13. No, it's not going to be, because Rick is not improving. So Rick will start this race from the back, and Tia from P12. He's not going to be happy with that. Darth Nihilus, though, is going to be the first to of these drivers to try and challenge for pole on this final run. Through the last couple of corners now for the Williams driver from Mexico to the last corner, and the Season 6 champion puts pedal to the metal all the way to the line now. Is it going to be enough for pole position? Yes, it's more than enough. A 29.4 for Darth. It is unbelievable from the Season 6 champion. Enchiladadad, Alex G can't improve. Yeah, he does improve, in fact, to P3, but he can't get anywhere near that time from Darth. I'd be surprised if anybody did. Jack Alacco, no improvement. Sumo Gilligan into the pits, no improvement from the pole sitter from last week. Scott into the pits as well. What about Mania through the final corner? Krauser as well, just behind him. We've also got Lawrence there, but he's invalidated, so nothing from the Season 9 champ. Mania coming to the line, gets inches away from invalidating out of the final corner. What's it going to be? It's a 30.3, only a slight improvement, not enough to improve his position. RJ, is he getting a tow here from Krauser? I think he is. Krauser improves slightly. RJ doesn't improve enough either. I don't think he was in fact on a lap time at all, and Rick certainly isn't on one. So that is your qualifying session. Darth Nihilus takes pole by a wide margin, a 29.4, and he's getting back to his best, is Darth, in that Williams. And well, now we're beginning to see why this man was promoted up to Tier 1 back in the day, because at his best, he I think it's safe to say he can smoke this grid. Although he is saying in the chat, he's saying in the Discord that that is the best lap he's ever done. So perhaps he's not as far ahead on race pace as qualifying would make it seem. Jacko says the track seemed to be greasy on that last lap. Interesting. Womax has joined, which is so annoying. But Darth takes pole position, as we see, and it's alongside him Enchilada Dad in the Williams for a Williams front row lockout after we saw a Mercedes front row lockout last week. But great effort from both of them there. Alex G takes P3 with Aces in P4. Scott takes a top 5 place in qualifying just alongside his teammate RJ in P6. He said he could have had P2 if he hadn't invalidated. Sumo takes P7 in the end today. Jackalacco down in P8 with Krauser and Mania splitting the two Alpines there. Lawrence in P11 and then Tia and Rick making up the back of the grid. It seems like Womax is going to join in P14. Oh no, he's left the session. There we go. Okay, yeah, he's way too late. But there we go. Oh, and it's heavy rain to start the race. I don't know if it'll stay this way throughout, but more wet weather in Tier 2 by the looks of it. We had plenty of that in Canada, and I can't remember if we had any in USA last week in Tier 2. We definitely had it in Tier 1, but Tier 2 I can't remember. It figures, though, we've had a lot of dry races in a row before Canada, from season to season. So it figures we'd have a few wet ones back to back. Jacko's saying the track was a bit greasy on the final runs in the last 2 minutes, so that's interesting. Interesting to hear. Maybe the track temperature was cooling down, made it difficult for people to improve, but Darth Nihilus clearly didn't have any trouble. So here we go for the formation lap. Darth Nihilus gets us underway. It looks like full wets. Is it full wets? Let's find out. No, it's inters. It looked like it was full wets from the pit lane view, but no, intermediate tyres for everyone to start off with. I don't know if the rain will get worse or better, or whether it will stay the same throughout. But we'll have to find out. So yeah, everyone on the inters. So we'll switch to position change to see how everything goes at the start. But yeah, Williams front row. They're going to have to try hard to get themselves up the grid, or to get themselves with a gap from the rest of the grid. Darth Nihilus, by the way, he has historically struggled in wet weather. Back to his season 6, season 7 days, back when he was tearing up Tier 2, he was often the fastest car on the track in the dry, but as soon as it turned wet, he really started to struggle, at least for a good while before he got into gear, and even then he certainly wasn't the fastest on track anymore. So we'll see how these differing conditions from qualifying affect the pace of the drivers out there. But Darth Nihilus is going to be hoping that he's gotten rid of his wet weather demons, because starting from pole, no better place. So he's going to be hoping to take full advantage. I'm liking his helmet this season, by the way, Darth. I'd say that's an 8 out of 10. I like the Mexican flag colours on there. Very nicely done. Here he goes, coming up to the grid. Everyone gets themselves sorted. Someone nearly spinning in the background there. But everyone getting into their grid slots as we're about to begin for the French Grand Prix. Here we go. 2, 3, 4, 5 red lights. And we're underway for the French Grand Prix. It's a fantastic start from Darth from pole position. Enchiladad getting swamped by Alex. Just behind Alex, already ahead before the braking zone, up to P2. And in fact, getting swamped by the Haas's Aces. It's 3 wide through turn 1. The Red Bull turns off the circuit to avoid the carnage. Someone's off. That's Krauser all the way round again. Oh no, there's the Haas round in the background. That's Aces versus Kings. No, sorry, it's Scott. Aces is down to 11th. I don't know what happened to both Haas's, but they were 3 wide with RJ going into turns 1 and 2, and RJ just cut the corner to avoid them, and he's somehow ended up in P3 out of all of that. I don't know if Enchiladad will have something to say about that, as he lost the position to RJ, but it's an absolutely disastrous start for both Haas drivers, as well as Krauser, of course, who needed a good race. That's such a shame. The Alpines already up to 5th and 6th. This is just what they do. They're not the best at qualifying, but in the race they just take full advantage, and they get better and better as the race goes on. Aces, in fact, getting a penalty for corner cutting, perhaps wing damage to the Haas driver, or maybe a bit of rage, as Tier goes down the inside of Mania into what's normally a flat-out right-hander, but not in these conditions. But Tier's made the move work. It's a great pass from the Ferrari driver, who's already up 3 positions. Rick is up 5 positions in the Alfa Romeo, as is Lawrence, as RJ now gets past Alex. In the meantime, in the Red Bull, Alex going off the track in the meantime, nearly spins it on the less grippy track excursion, and now down the inside into the final corner. There's contact as they go through, and Alex is round as a result. It was a very, very risky move from the Ukrainian driver, and he has paid the price. He's down to P8, and RJ now 2 seconds behind Darth, but up to P2, and Enchiladad chasing him down for that top 2 spot. It looks like a mistake, though, from Darth through turns 1 and 2. He's lost a ton of time there. And Jack Alacco now making a move on the Irish driver. Up to P3 goes the defending champion and the championship leader, or joint championship leader, with his teammate as they go through the middle sector now. Enchiladad struggling, maybe wing damage on that Williams, maybe just doesn't have the right setup for the conditions, who knows. But Lawrence is going to try and challenge him now, but Enchiladad, I think he's got a less downforce setup on, which means he is going to struggle through the corners. But look at that straight line speed he had there on Jack Alacco. But it wasn't enough to make the pass, and now he's going to be vulnerable to Lawrence on the corner exit. There's definitely a less grippy setup on that Williams, and he's paying the price for it, down to P5 on lap 2. And he's got a lot of ground to make up now, as Lawrence now chases down his teammate for P3. These two, Jack Alacco has finished P3 in all of the last 3 races. And Lawrence is going to be looking to disrupt that as he tries to fight his teammate for the win. And Darth Nihilus, talking of fighting, has lost the place to RJ. He started this lap 2 seconds ahead, and RJ has now taken the lead of the French Grand Prix. What a start for him in that Red Bull. He avoided the carnage at the beginning. He could maybe be in trouble for cutting the corner in the way that he did, but No, I mean, it's worked for him. He is in the lead now, and he's set the fastest lap as well. Enchiladad with damage, says Donaldinho in the chat. I don't know if that's true. I don't know if you two know each other and you know that he does have damage, but there's no visible damage at least. So if it is damage, it's minor. But it does look like he's struggling with corners. That would definitely a warning. I thought maybe he just had a dry setup on, but perhaps he does have damage. Palang in the chat, APPF1 over Champions League, absolutely. Much more entertaining. As now Rick is challenging the Williams driver for P5. Enchiladad really struggling now in that Williams, under pressure from the Dutchman, but Rick chooses not to send it into this left-hander. Sensible decision from the two-time F2 Cup champion. He'll love that I described him like that. As he comes around to Darth Nihilus, now back on RJ, round the outside into this right-hander, very fast corner, and he's made the move work. Darth back into the lead, but RJ right on his tail, and Darth goes incredibly deep. RJ right there, gets cut off, shuts the door, does Darth on the exit, and there's nothing RJ can do about it in the end. But look at this corner entry from the American driver. In fact, hits the back of the Williams and loses his own car as a result of getting too close, and now he's under pressure from the two championship leaders in the Alpines, Giacalacco and Lawrence, right behind the Red Bull, and this battle for the race lead well and truly back on. It's a four-way fight now. It could be five if Rick can manage to join the party in that Alfa Romeo. Enchiladad really struggling. I wouldn't be surprised if he did have damage, as Donaldinho says. But regardless, he is really not having a good time out there right now after a brilliant qualifying performance. It just hasn't really gone his way in races this season at all, which is a real shame. But hopefully he'll be back next season anyway. It's a bit early to be talking about next season, but yeah, that's definitely damage. There's so much understeer on that Williams, so definitely some minor damage to that car, which is going to be a real struggle for him to deal with. Sumo in P7 at the moment, one of the two drivers to keep where they started in this race, as RJ and Darth go to battle again, and Darth stays ahead for now, but Giacalacco now on the tail of the Red Bull driver. Lawrence is there as well. Remember, these two, they're not really fighting for constructors anymore, so I don't think team orders is going to be a thing. It certainly isn't, as Lawrence sends it down the inside of Jacko, who gets a poor exit, and he's made the move. The Season 9 champion battling with the Season 10 champion. And RJ's in the wall. RJ has binned it in the Red Bull. That's such a shame. We've got a safety car as a result of that. That's going to bring everyone back into the race. But RJ's going to have to come into the pits. Was Enchiladad already past the pit lane? No. So he can come in for a front wing change if he wishes and get that free pit stop. I'd be surprised if he didn't. Oh, Enchiladad, he's going to be in trouble for that. Live on camera. I promise I wasn't trying to catch him out. I was just trying to see if he was going to pit, because he's clearly got some sort of damage to that car. But that's a very late decision, and if anyone reports that, that's going to be a slam dunk for Enchiladad, unfortunately. Are they even going to replace his wing? Yes, they are, so he did select the right option in the MFD, thankfully. But four drivers into the pits, RJ and Enchiladad for damage. Aces, don't think he had damage. He's let's have a quick look at tyres, actually, because that looked like the wet tyres. Hang on a second. It was. Aces has gone for the full wets. He doesn't think this weather is improving. It certainly doesn't seem to be, but it also doesn't look like wets yet. This is a big gamble. Aces, we all know. Anyone who's been watching APPF1 for a little while knows that if anyone's going to go for a completely wild tyre gamble, it's going to be this man right here, Ace versus Kings, and he's gone for it here, and look at the understeer on those wet tyres. You can see it from the onboard. Oh, that's a struggle. Well, we'll see if this turns out to be an inspired decision or a complete strategy nightmare from Aces. No one else has gone for the wets. RJ there in P13 on the intermediate tyres, so he's got a lot of ground to make up. We've got RJ Enchilada Dad as well. These two now to the back of the grid, but on fresh tyres, and we're going to see them try and make some moves to get themselves back up the grid. I think Krauser and Aces just taking the opportunity to come into the pits, although Krauser may have had damage actually, because he did go off at turn 1 on lap 1, but Aces, I think, just going for it, going for a bold strategy call. But because I don't think he repaired his wing, so we'll see how it works out for him. Is he back into the pits? He is back into the pits. He's either not happy on those tyres, or he just doesn't. He didn't repair his wing last time. That could be an option. He meant to repair the wing and it didn't repair it for him. The Hasses are going to double stack, so they're going to go to the back of the grid now. Scott's into the pits as well. Is it going to be wets for him? No, it's fresh intermediates for Scott. And I think Aces is going to go back onto those inters. Yeah, he is. He had a little look to see if the wets were any good. Concluded, nope. They're awful, and has gone back onto the intermediates. So the Hasses down in 12th and 13th now, but on those fresh tyres, so there's still plenty of opportunities for them in the next phase of this Grand Prix. Meanwhile, the two Alpines who started this race, I think 7th and 10th, now it's 2nd and 3rd. Par for the course with these two. It's what they do week in, week out. Bad qualifying, fantastic races every single week. And today looking like it's no different. But they've got the wily old fox in Darth Nihilus just ahead of them, of course. You can never count him out. We've got, I mean, in the top 4 right now, we have 5 Drivers' Championships. We've got Darth, Season 6 Tier 2 champion, Lawrence, Season 10, Season 9, sorry, Jacko, Season 10, and Rick, 2-time F2 Cup champion. And then, of course, we've got Scott, who has a Sprint Championship to his name. And then, of course, many Constructors' Championships shared up and down the grid as well. But a lot of stars on this grid today. But the top 4 sharing a lot of championships between them. And we'll see who's going to come out on top today. Darth Nihilus coming through the final few corners. The safety car is in this lap, so he decides when to punch it. Riding on board with Lawrence to try and see what Darth is going to do. Is he going to go before the last corner? Is he going to go extremely late? Takes a very wide line through the penultimate corner. Looks like he's gone already. Perhaps. I think he has done. I think he's tried to catch Lawrence out. Yeah, he has indeed. Enchilada Dad's into the pits. Oh no, what's happened to the Williams driver? Not another bit of front wing damage for him, surely. But we've got to cut to the action here, because Tia is going on the attack on Sumo Gilligan down the inside of the Mercedes driver into turn 1. They go wheel to wheel. Tia has to back out in the end. Sumo retakes the place. Tia goes very wide on the exit of 2 as well. Krauser getting it past Mania already. Perhaps team orders at Aston Martin, as Krauser's on much better tyres. RJ trying to get his way through as well, but not quite yet. As Lawrence trying to make a move on Darth. Mania nearly going to the side of his teammate there at the last corner of the first sector. Scott and Aces trying to tag along in the meantime as well. Enchilada Dad a long way behind. I don't know what happened. Surely damage. There's no other reason he would have pitted the lap the safety car came in. I don't know what happened to him. RJ finally manages to get past the other Aston Martin of Mania. Very nicely done from the American driver. Perfect, pitch perfect overtake from RJ there. As Alex makes a big mistake on the exit of the corner. Tier and Sumo going wheel to wheel again as well, just ahead. Tier makes the place up this time. Krauser, they both go very wide on the exit. Krauser, RJ trying to get past the Aston Martin driver in the meantime. Alex G has lost 2 positions. RJ makes the move. He goes down the inside. Can Krauser get the better exit on the outside? Yes, he can, and he keeps the place for now. But RJ trying to go all the way around the outside at the next corner. Rick and Jacko, meanwhile, going wheel to wheel at the front. They're still side by side through the last couple of corners. Rick down the inside of his Tier 1 teammate, and he's made the move into the penultimate corner. It's a fantastic overtake from Rick, and Jackalacko down to P4. With Tier now under pressure from Sumo and Krauser. Sumo loses another place. Those much fresher tyres coming in very, very handy for those guys, or everyone who pitted. Krauser now to the inside of turn 1 and 2. Look at this. Oh, overspeed. He's got on Tier on the exit. He loses the rear, somehow saves the car, comes back on track, nearly collects RJ as he does. And RJ trying to go around the outside. What a move this would be from the American driver. Krauser leaves him the room. It's fantastic racing between these two. Krauser down the inside at the next corner. RJ forced a little bit onto the curb there. Krauser keeps the place. RJ's not going to be too happy about how he did it, but Krauser stays in P7 for now, and look how much time they're losing to the cars ahead. Tier, Sumo really struggling. 7-lap-old tyres compared to 3-lap-old tyres. It's going to be 3 wide. Surely not. Down towards the next corner. Krauser down the inside. Can he get it stopped? Yes, he can, but so can Sumo. And now RJ's putting his nose in. Oh my goodness me. Sumo's a bit of a brick wall at the moment. They call him the brick wall. He's certainly proving to be one at the moment. He bangs wheels with Krauser on the exit as well through the straight. RJ's down the inside of the Mercedes driver. They go wheel to wheel again still through the next corner. Mania loses places to both Hasses. Sumo's going to do the same surely as Scott goes down his inside. Gets a much better exit. Sumo on the curb. He's round. I think he was collected by Aces. There could be damage to the Haas driver now as a result of that. But Sumo's down to P12. It's not gone well for him today. He had a fantastic race last week in Kota, but at the moment he finds himself 9 seconds down on the rest of the pack after that spin. That's such a shame. Alex G into the pits now. Is there damage to the other Mercedes, I wonder? Aces has stayed out, so maybe got away without damage, but that could have been a lot worse, to be honest, with Sumo spinning there. Alex has gone onto the wets. Full wet tyres for the Mercedes driver. RJ all the way off the track, and he's lost a ton of places. Back down to P9 again. P10, in fact, for the Red Bull driver, as he gets a track limits penalty as well. He just seems to me making so much progress, and then it just all goes to pot, as now Rick is battling with the other Alpine of Lawrence for P2. He can't quite get the move done into that corner, but Rick is flying at the moment, but so is Darth. Look at this, 1.2 seconds he's got now. Sumo into the pits for wet tyres. Both Mercedes have gone for the gamble. Perhaps Aces should have stuck to his guns, who knows? But everyone else sticking to the Inters for now. We'll see if anyone else decides that enough is enough on these green wall tyres over the next few laps. Rick through the final sector. He's just behind this Alpine. He can see where he wants to be. He can see Darth just a little bit in front. In P1, as Sumo's gone round again. I think those wet tyres are not the tyre to be on, as Tier gets himself a track limits penalty as well. There'll be a few more of those, I reckon, over the course of this race. Tier and RJ the first two to get them, but I don't think they'll be the last, as now Krauser. It's eerily similar to, oh no, I was just about to say, eerily similar to when Krauser won around this track a few seasons ago in terms of the weather, but he's slammed into the back of Tier into the final corner and lost his front right end plate, and that is going to be devastating for the Aston Martin driver. Look at the understeer. Scott gets a huge snap of oversteer, meanwhile, just ahead. Rejoins the circuit just ahead of Krauser, but Krauser gets the better exit, and look at that, what a move from the Aston Martin driver, but that damage is going to be huge for his corner entry and exit speeds. And surely Scott is going to make light work of Krauser in the following few corners. Krauser goes very, very deep, and Aces is going to get him as well. He's surely going to have to come back into the pits, and that's such a shame. He was having such a good race up until this point, but it's just not ended well for him. At the moment, there's still a long way to go in the race, of course. Oh my goodness me, Aces breaks so early for the corner, catches both Krauser and RJ out. Nearly a big collision there, but they just about all get away with it. And now Aces, big oversteer, as does Krauser. Is it going to be 3 wide into the next corner? It looks like it is. Aces makes his way through, RJ down the inside of Krauser, but Krauser's nothing he can do about it with that damage. Aces now gets a track limits penalty, and Krauser's damage sends him off the road again. Oh, that's such a shame. He does not deserve that at all, but it was a driver error on his part, and Aces has gone too deep into the corner trying to overtake RJ, and he's binned it himself. Understeers into the Red Bull, and he's spun down to P10 now. And this race is just non-stop drama up and down the grid. Tier now under pressure from Scott as he takes a terrible line through the final corner. Krauser's in to repair his wing. And he's going to be absolutely gutted that he's made that mistake. Here comes Tier now, back down the inside of Scott. Much better straight line speed for the Ferrari driver, but Scott sweeps round the outside and keeps that place up to P5 for Scott as he continues to charge after the top 4 now. He's on 5-lap fresher tyres. And Scott is a real contender for the top positions in this race today. Krauser onto the wet tyres as well as a new front wing, of course. So a few drivers thinking that the wets are the way to go at this point. The rain looks like it has gotten worse. There's a huge crash. I think someone's just taken out the barrier. That was Jack Alacco, who's just taken out the advertising board. I don't think there's damage. He's kept it out the wall by the looks of it, as now RJ trying to make it past here, but he can't quite do it. But a huge mistake from the Scottish driver, the defending champion. And that's very much unlike him. We haven't seen a lot of that from him this season, but at a crucial time in this French Grand Prix, he's down to P7, and he's got to make up that ground again on 10-lap-old tyres, much worse than Scott and RJ's, a few places ahead of him. But I think he should be able to clear Tier, but after that, it's going to be a struggle for him in these conditions to make any progress. Mania just tagging along in the meantime, just profiting off all of the calamities that keep happening in front of him. And Lawrence has caught up to the race leader, and in fact he's going for a move on the race leader into the final corner, backs out of it, but he wants another win. He's won once already this season in China, and he wants another one. We've had 4 different winners in the first 4 races of the season. Lawrence does not want it to be 5, but neither does Darth, because Darth won last week, of course. And Rick is only a second behind. Lawrence nearly bins it at turn 2, but just about keeps it on the road. And all of the top 5 drivers here are racing with no line, which is fantastic. As now Scott makes a surprise move on the inside of Rick, who seems to be struggling now for Romeo through that corner, and what a move that is from Scott. The Season 2 Sprint Champion, or is it Season 3? I can't remember. No, it was Season 3 that he won the Sprint Championship. And now RJ's trying to make his way through as well. Where has he come from with that straight line speed? Rick's got absolutely nothing on that straight compared to the Red Bull driver. And Rick down to P5. He's going to just have to try and stick with these two, because they are flying, Scott and RJ, on those much better tyres. But Rick's coming back at him. Look at it. It's the ERS usage. RJ forces him to go down the inside, defends very well. Good car placement there from RJ. And there's nothing Rick can do about it as he goes deep into the next corner. And someone's gone round. That's Lawrence and Darth, both off the track. And Scott now leads the Grand Prix. Lawrence and Darth, I don't know if there was contact, but both of them were off the track at that point. And Scott takes full advantage and now leads the race. RJ and Rick going side by side again as RJ gets caught short by the carnage. RJ down the inside, Darth into the pits. There's contact between these two. Somehow they both stay pointing in the right direction. RJ stays ahead of Rick and he's now fighting, going after the top two, but so is Rick. He's right here with him as those 8-lap-old Inters starting to lose their edge on the 12-lap-old tyres. Rick round the outside of turn 1. What a move that is from the Dutchman, and there's nothing RJ can do. He tries to hold it around the outside of 2, but he can't quite do it, and he's going to have to stick behind for now, or is he? Yeah, he is. He's not going to dive down the inside there. As Darth and Tia both come into the pits. Tia exits behind Alex G, as does Darth. So Alex G ahead of both of them now at this stage on those wet tyres. And this is a good comparison. 4-lap-old wets against fresh Inters in these conditions. Which is better? Are the wets coming into play here? As Darth discovering for the first time in this race, I think, that someone has gone onto the wet tyres, and Alex very deep into that corner, and Darth does not waste any time, sends it straight down the inside and bumps Alex off the track. I don't know how Alex is going to feel about that one, but Darth has made his way through, and it looks like those wets are really struggling at the moment, and Tia surely going to send his way back through. Mania's coming for wets as well. I didn't notice that. He's just come in, he's rolled the dice. He's obviously talking to Krauser, and Krauser's told him that the wets are feeling pretty good, so he's tried to jump the gun here and get the wets on early. Sumo's round again in the Mercedes. It has not been his day today. It's the highest of highs last week at Kota, and now back to the lowest of lows today, unfortunately. But there still could be chances for him if the safety car comes out. But Lawrence into the pits, Rick in as well. This is going to be wet tyres, I think. They're all starting to think it's time for wets. But Darth and Tia went onto the Inters. Have they made a blunder here? Yeah, Lawrence, wet tyres. Rick, blue-walled wet tyres as well for him. And the strategies are coming into play. We're about halfway through this Grand Prix, and I have no idea which tyre is the right one to be on. Enchilada down up to P5 thanks to all the pit stops in the meantime. Lawrence exiting the pits just behind Darth Nihilus. He nearly hit him there. Sumo is stressing. I'm not surprised, LB. He is not having a good day so far. But that was so nearly contact between the two former title rivals, and in fact probably still title rivals this season if Darth can keep up his form as of late. He's fuming on his chat. Yeah, I'm not surprised. But Lawrence and Rick out on the wet tyres. It still looks like the Inters are slightly better at the moment. Rick's struggling compared to Tia in this first sector. It could be that they're not warmed up yet, but I don't think that's the case for the wets. So can Lawrence hold on to the back of Darth here? Is the rain going to get worse? That's the other question. Because if it does, as Tia gets past Rick on those intermediates, then Darth and Tia are going to have to pit again, and Rick nearly bins it. Sumo does bin it again in Sector 1 in the meantime. I wouldn't be surprised to see an early retirement, unfortunately, for my podcast partner. It's been a horrible day for him today in these wet conditions, and we've got yellow flags again. It's RJ. He's gone round again by the looks of it in the Red Bull. He's lost the place to Jacko, but Jacko dives into the pits for the wet tyres. Scott and RJ are staying out. They still think it's intermediates. They don't think it's time to come in yet. And well, we'll see. We'll see how it is. It seems like it's right on the crossover point because Lawrence is still sticking behind Darth. Enchilada Dad seems to be struggling, and well, maybe he can make life difficult for Lawrence here because Darth is under a lot of pressure here, but he does set the fastest lap, but then Tia does just behind him as well. So the fresh Inter's working at the moment, but the wet seem just as good at this stage, and Lawrence comes through turn 2. It gets a much better exit just to prove it. Enchilada Dad not helping his teammate today. I know Darth is a reserve driver, so they don't really have to help each other, I suppose. And Williams are way down in the Constructors' Championship, so Enchilada Dad is fighting for position here, no matter the team by the looks of it. And here comes Lawrence, but he goes very deep and gets himself a 3-second time penalty for track limits. Darth now to the inside of his teammate. Rick and Tia fighting just behind as well. Is it going to be 3 wide into the next corner? No. And Darth backs out. Enchilada Dad gets it stopped. Very nicely done from the Irish driver, but his teammate comes right back at him on the exit and gets him there with the better exit speed. And looks like Lawrence is going to follow him through. Down the inside of the next corner goes Lawrence. Enchilada Dad backs out, tries to get the switchback, but that's not going to happen on these tyres in these conditions. And Lawrence up to P5 and chasing after Darth. It does seem like those wet tyres are working well. Certainly the fresh tyres are working well. And Scott, RJ and Aces could be in a lot of trouble within a few laps here. 4 seconds to Aces, then 9 seconds to RJ and another 5.5 to Scott. Are they going to try and go all the way here, Scott, RJ and Aces? It would be quite the haul as Enchilada Dad decides enough is enough. He's into the pits. Of course, if a safety car comes out, then the top 3 are well back into this race, but as it stands, I don't know if staying out is really going to work for them, especially if this rain is getting worse and the wets are becoming the tyre to be on. Scott, RJ and Aces could have messed this one up. Darth is catching them very, very quickly. That was half a second in the first sector alone. And Lawrence chasing after him as well. Jack Alaco down to P9 after he came in as well. So he's got work to do after his spin earlier on. But here comes the Alpine driver, Lawrence D. The championship leader with his teammate comes down to the next corner. Can he make a move around the outside? No, he's not going to be able to. But those wet tyres getting better and better compared to the Inters, I think. Although it still looks like it's right on the cutoff. Darth seems absolutely fine on the Inters at the moment. Just doesn't quite have the same pace on the straights as Lawrence, who's pressing his ERS to try and challenge the Williams down towards the right-hander. Can't quite do it. How's the ERS looking for Darth? As he's looking like about 50% on that Williams compared to Lawrence's 25% or so. So a big ERS advantage for Darth, but of course, much easier to save battery in these conditions, so it's not as much of a factor. Rick, in the meantime, 2.5 seconds down on these two. He's perfectly happy where he is at the moment, honestly, with Lawrence's penalty. Rick is in a net P5, or P5 on paper. Really, it's a net P2, assuming those top 3 do come into the pits at some point. Krause is in again. Is it going to be Inters this time? Perhaps it's turned back over to the Inters. I don't know. Maybe there's damage to the Aston Martin. I'm not sure. He did seem to lose a lot of time. Is it a front wing change for Krause? No, it's not. It is back to the Inters for Krause. He doesn't think the wets are the right tyre. And based on how Lawrence is driving at the moment, I would agree, because he's not gaining anything on Darth. In fact, he seems to be losing time in this first sector, just struggling out of that corner there. It's really difficult to tell what the right tyre is right now. 14 seconds, 15 seconds more like, between Darth Nihilus and Scott. Let's see. Yeah, gap to leader, 16 seconds between Darth and Scott, with 10.5 laps left to go. Can Scott possibly hold on here for a race victory? It would be a sensational race victory if he could. And a fantastic strategy decision, but we'll see how it goes. Aces versus Kings now is going to try and do the Fernando Alonso, and his Fernando Alonso attempt has lasted about 2 corners, or has it? He's fighting back on Darth again. They lock wheels, but he can't quite keep the place, and Scott's into the pits. He's decided that's it. He's not going to get these tyres to the end in any reasonable fashion. Lawrence gets past the Haas as well, and Aces is going to dive into the pits by the looks of it for the wet tyres. Scott, here he goes. What tyres is it going to be, Inters or wets? It's inters, fresh inters for Scott, and maybe, just maybe, he's still in with a shout of this, because look at this, Darth is coming down towards turn 1 now, and Scott is coming out the pits. He's not that far behind, but he's got Mania coming up the straight. He's going to be behind Mania, but just in front of Jackalacko, which is going to be really annoying for Jacko. Aces has gone onto the hards. Okay, Aces. You know what, Aces? You do whatever you want to do, man. Yeah, he's going to be right to the back of this grid, unfortunately for him. But Scott now has got work to do, but if those inters are the right tyres, he is in with a fantastic chance of winning this Grand Prix. He's only, let's see, leader. He's only 7 seconds or so behind Darth Nihilus. He's going to easily make this move on Mania, not even a problem at all. Straight down into the braking zone already ahead, and Scott up to P5. 4 seconds to his next target, Rick, in the Alfa Romeo. Those wet tyres, they're okay, but they're not the optimal tyre. I don't think the inters are either. I think it's right on that edge, and it's really difficult for our drivers to really decide what to do here. Look at how quickly Scott has taken down that gap to Rick. He's gained a second in 2 corners. He's gained 1 second on Rick, and Scott is in with a real chance here. 3.1, 3.0 seconds to Rick. We'll see what it is at the end of the final 2 corners of the lap. Penultimate corner for Scott, and the final corner on the exit. He's gained half a second in 1 corner, nearly half a second, and he is flying after those top 4 now. Rick is going to, once he gets up to them, he's going to have no problem whatsoever overtaking them by the looks of it. Jacko gets past Mania as well for P6, but I think Scott has played an absolute trying to stay out. I think he's going to go to the end here. 14 lap old inters. Scott thought it wasn't going to do it, but RJ clearly thinks that his time is now. And Aces, 5-second penalty for speeding in the pit lane. Is that going to be, an early retirement for the British driver? So our first retirement of the race, in fact. So Tier 2's done a great job so far, but unfortunate for Aces. That I think mistake of putting on the wrong tyres in the pits seems to be at the final straw. Meanwhile, Scott, less than a second between him and Rick. He's gained 2.5 seconds in half a lap on this Alfa Romeo. Look at this from Scott. This could be the strategy decision of the season. Lawrence now with another time penalty. He's up to 6 seconds of track limits penalties, and he's down to a net P5 now. RJ still 10.5 seconds ahead of Darth. He's still doing a decent job in that Red Bull, but he does have that penalty to contend with, and if Scott does manage to pick his way past, then RJ is going to have to contend with the Haas driver to win this race. But as it is, it could be a fantastic decision to stay out. Lawrence has come in. He doesn't think the inters are going for it. He thinks it's coming back, that the wets are going for it rather. He thinks it's coming back to the inters again, and it seems like it, because Darth pulled one heck of a gap on him, and Scott all the way around the outside of Rick. He's made the move well before the braking zone, and P3 for Scott, and it's 5 seconds between him and Darth Nihilus for P2 in this race. Lawrence comes out the pits on fresh inters. He's seen what Scott's doing. He wants a piece of that. He thinks the wets are back off the menu, and he's ahead of Enchilada Dad, which is crucial, but he's got so much time to make up, and 6 seconds of penalties as well. Jackalacko in P5, he's going to take the championship lead as it stands by 2 points from his teammate, but neither of them have had a fantastic race today so far. They had a brilliant start, but ever since then it's gone slightly downhill. Jacko with his spin, Lawrence with seemingly a strategy blunder, and all of these drivers on the wets may have to come in anyway again for the inters if it is coming back to lighter rain conditions. Look at the gap between Scott and Darth. 1.5 seconds in 1 lap. That is how much better these tyres are. That is how In the zone, this man is. Scott is searching for this race win, but Darth is losing time to RJ. RJ is flying. 15 lap old inters. It's going to be 16 laps at the end of this straight, but he's going to have 7 more laps to do. Can he hold Scott off? Can he hold anyone off? Can he avoid getting a puncture? So many questions to ask. He's leading the race by 11 seconds, but I mean, you would think with 7 laps to go, someone leading the race by 11 seconds, huge snap there on the Exeter too, the race is done and dusted. He's just going to win. But not this Grand Prix, not at this point. I have no idea who's going to win this, and a safety car would completely throw everything to the wind. Jackalacko and Mania are going to be hoping for that at this stage, because Lawrence and Rick both have come in. Rick is going to be behind Enchiladadad here as he comes out the pits, which is not ideal for him. He could be behind Tier and Krauser as well. Here comes Tier. He gets past the Alfa Romeo driver. Rick's got the outside line, but he's surely going to get the switchback done out of turn 2. Look at that exit speed for the Alfa Romeo, but in fact it's not quite enough. He's going to have to use the ERS, but he can't get past into the next corner. He hits the back of the Ferrari in desperation, but it's not going to work. Krauser's just behind as well on 4-lap-old inters. Rick goes for a desperate send up the inside. That's definitely not going to work. Tier fends him off, and this is allowing Krauser into the battle as well, and Rick is desperate to get past this Ferrari, but he's just not able to at the moment. Tier's using his ERS, and Rick is going to have to stay behind. That is a frustrated man inside that Alfa Romeo right now. Lawrence 7.5 seconds behind Mania. Could he possibly catch up and pull 6 seconds? I don't know, but Scott has caught up to Darth Nihilus in the meantime. This man is on a mission, half a second in it between these two drivers. RJ still leads by 11 seconds at the end of lap 21. Those tyres just do not seem to be wearing for the Red Bull driver. And Rick finally gets past Tier this time down the inside. Tier loses the rear on exit, just about keeps it on the circuit, but those wets really struggling. Jacko and Mania both in. We're back to the intermediates. And the wet tyre runners really struggling, and they've decided the writing's on the wall. Enchiladadad hasn't. He's stayed out for another lap, as has Tier. But Mania and Jacko have both come in, and Lawrence is back up to P4 now as a result of that, but he's going to be under pressure from Rick for that position as he's got those 6 seconds of penalties, and the gap is 9 seconds, so we'll see if Rick can chase him down. Tier and Enchiladadad side by side, they're both on the wet, and Tier makes the move. What an overtake from the Ferrari driver up to P6. Krauser's just behind them trying to make moves as well. Jacko and Mania exit the pits in P9 and 10. Scott down the inside of Darth Nihilus for P2 at the end of the middle sector. He's made it work, and he's up into the top 2 positions, but it's an 11-second gap to RJ Blair. What can he possibly do? There's 5.5 laps left to go. What is the penalty to RJ? It's 3 seconds, so Scott's going to need a heck of a lot more to win this race. I think he'd be happy with a podium, but RJ seems to have played an absolute blinder here. If he can get those tyres to the end without a puncture, he is on to win this race by a huge margin. Due to everyone else picking the slightly wrong strategy, he decided to stick it out. I'm not going to say it's done and dusted yet. Far from it. Scott is catching him already at a rate of knots. But RJ, with a 10.5 second gap, with 5 laps left to go in this race, I have no idea who's going to win, RJ or Scott. Maybe Scott makes a mistake and Darth manages to win the race. Who knows at this stage? But all I know is nothing is certain right now. Enchiladadad is going to put his car straight into the pits for the intermediate tyres. Tier doing the same thing, and those wets definitely out of commission now. It seems as the dry line has gotten too good for the wets to be any good compared to the inters. The rain hasn't gotten worse, or enough worse for it to be a big mistake to stay on the wets, and Jacko gets past Krauser, who goes for a big spin on the exit of 2. He almost saved it. He went left, and right again, and then right was the last direction he went in, and he had to do a full 360, but he's back on the racetrack, and he's in P8, which honestly, not a bad result if he can hold on. It's a 12-second gap to Tier, so he doesn't have to do too much, just keep it on the road, but he does seem to be struggling with that at the moment, nonetheless. Alex G also in for the Inters, and that concludes everyone's spell on the wet tyres, as Sumo has been lapped now. But RJ now only leads by 9.3. Scott continues to chase him. Only 6 lap old intermediate tyres at the end of this lap. RJ 19 laps old, and there's still 4 to go. Scott 9 seconds. He needs to catch 6 more seconds within 4 laps. It's certainly possible. He just gained 1.3, 1.4 on that lap alone, and RJ's tyres are only going to get worse. And Scott here, I think, is the favourite for this race win now. Darth Nihilus is nowhere. He doesn't have the pace to compete in these conditions now. 11 lap old intermediates. He just cannot do anything compared to those top 2. Rick now, 9.7 behind Lawrence. He's not been able to chase down the Alpine, and I think Lawrence might be able to secure P4 here, and it would be the championship lead by 2 points over his teammate. You heard that before a few laps ago, but it was the other way round. But after Jacko's pit stop, the tides have changed. In fact, Jacko could be 3 points down on his teammate if Mania can stay within 3 seconds. As Krauser into the pits again. What's happened? I think he's just fed up with those tyres. Maybe he was just scared of crashing out on the tyres he was on. Honestly, the way it was looking from riding on board with him, I don't blame him. He just wants to secure some points. And he exits in P10 as Enchilada right on the tail of Tier now. Coming through turn 6. And now down through the next corner. Tier struggling on the curves, but Enchilada not much better. What about the penalties between the two of them? There's 9 seconds for Tier and 3 for Enchilada. Okay, so the Williams driver is in a net P8. He doesn't have to overtake the Ferrari here, but he's still going to want to. He's a racer, we all are. We all want to get it done on track if we can, especially when it's for positions like this, and neither of them are in a title race. So Enchilada going to want to get him on circuit, I'm sure. We cut back to the front though. RJ Blair leads by 8 seconds now. It's come down by another second, but it's not enough. Scott needs more than that in the next 3 laps in order to take this race win right at the death. It's 7.7 seconds. He needs it to be below 3 to win this race. He's only got 2.5 more laps to do it. And the gap is not coming down fast enough. I think Scott's tyres are losing their edge, and RJ's tyres, they are getting worse, but they're still drivable. He's still doing a very good job. We saw Krauser struggling on 10 lap old Inters or something like that. I can't remember how old they were now, but he was struggling. But now, no such struggle for him. But of course, RJ on much older tyres, and just riding on board with him, he doesn't seem to be struggling at all. We saw him have a little moment a few laps ago, but it was nothing really to write home about. And he's coming into the last couple of corners, and he's maintained the gap. RJ Blair is flying on 21 lap old intermediate tyres. This is the drive of his career, or one of the, for certain. Tier now gets a time penalty. That's him up to 12 seconds in the Ferrari. So that's definitely P8 secure for Enchilada. But Darth Nihilus has got nothing. He is well out of the battle for the top 2. 6.5 seconds behind Scott already as we come into the last 2 laps of this Grand Prix. And Scott now is just going to have to pray for a mistake from the American driver. And it's happened. RJ lost half a second out of turn 2 there on Scott. but it's not enough. It's still not enough right now, and Scott's going to be praying for either a mistake or a puncture, because either one is likely here. At this late stage, RJ's going to have the nerves. He hasn't won a Grand Prix since Singapore last season, and he's going to want to end that duck today. Scott as well. He hasn't won a Grand... well, no, I take that back. He won a Grand Prix a couple of rounds ago, but I digress. He's wanting a second win of the season. RJ is going to try and make it 5 different winners from the first 5 races. And at the moment, he's looking like he's going to do that. But Krauser sets the fastest lap out of nowhere of 43.9. The condition is definitely getting better then, but on low fuel as well. And fresh tyres, Krauser gets the extra point, and that's going to be a nice little consolation for the British driver from an otherwise day of chances that could have been converted but weren't quite for him today. Of course, he was very unlucky into turn 1 on lap 1, and it just hasn't worked out for him today. But still, P10 and a fastest lap. He's not going to be too unhappy about that. Alex G and Sumo in the meantime, P11 and 12. It's not gone well for Mercedes today, but they're still both going to score points as we come onto the final lap of the French Grand Prix. RJ Blair's gap has come down to below 6 seconds, but he just needs to do this final lap with no major errors, and he should take home the victory. Scott's going to be right there. He's going to be battling, fighting the car through the circuit to try and bring that gap down. But he's got to rely on a mistake from RJ now. He doesn't have the pace to do it himself. Half a lap to go for RJ Blair, 5.5 seconds. He just needs to keep it on the circuit and keep it familiar through the lines. And that's exactly what he's doing. A little error through the exit of that corner there, but Scott makes a bigger error, and he's lost another 4 tenths. On entry to the corner, he gains them all back on the exit, but it's not going to be enough as it stands. Enchilada gets another penalty, but it doesn't matter for his race. Mania has managed to stay with Jacko, so Jacko is going to lose that place and go down to P7 in the end. So Lawrence will be leading the championship by 3 points as it stands, but who cares about the championship at this point in this Grand Prix? We care about the race win between RJ and Scott. 5.6 seconds between them, 5.4, but RJ's just got 2 more corners to navigate. 1 more corner. He's just got to get the throttle on the exit, and he's done that. He comes through down to the line. RJ Blair wins the French Grand Prix. What a drive. Surely one of the drives of his APPF1 career. 23 lap old intermediate tyres. He gets them to the end, and he wins the race by 2.2 seconds from Scott, who had a fantastic race of his own as well. What a strategy decision it was to come in and fight back, but in the end it wasn't enough, and he finishes P2. Darth Nihilus a distant P3 in the end, just didn't have the pace on those top 2, but he'll still be happy with a podium. Lawrence finishes P4, Rick some way down in P5. Mania does get Jacko at the line for P6. Great race from the Aston Martin driver, and Jacko loses the championship lead. Enchilada Dad comes through as well, the final corner for him. It's going to be P8 for today. Not quite what he would have wanted after starting this race in 2nd place, but he's still recovered decently well. Tier comes across the line and, in fact, lets Krauser back through. Perhaps there was an incident between them, and Tier has decided that he should let Krauser back through. But he finishes P10 in the end as a result of that, as Alex G is going to finish the race in the pit lane, the Michael Schumacher way. And there we go. fascinating, tactical, strategic Grand Prix that was. Absolutely loved it. Game gives driver of the day to Rick. I cannot not give it to RJ. What a drive from this man in the Red Bull. There is potential. There is potential for a penalty. That's all I'll say for when he cut across the track at turn one and gained a place. He could get reported for that and lose the race win. It's possible, but that's all I'll say. It's possible, not because I didn't quite see what happened. All I saw was him off the track, but we'll see. But I won't say too much about that at the moment. We'll let the stewards deal with that. Because for now, RJ Blair, driver of the day and a race win. What a drive. 23 laps on the same intermediate tyres. That is outstanding from RJ. And he takes a very well-deserved race win. Scott comes home in P2 in the Haas. What a drive from him as well. It wasn't quite enough for the win, but he'll be very pleased. Darth Nihilus, a distant P3, but he'll still be happy with a podium. Lawrence in P4. Rick in the top 5 does well. Mania in P6. Jackalacco down in 7th. I think his one of his worst result of the season since Australia. Enchilada Dad down in P8 after starting second. He won't be too happy, but it was a decent recovery. Krauser and Tier make up the rest of the top 10 with Alex G and Sumo the back of the grid, and Aces versus Kings retiring in the pit lane. So stick around for podium interviews. They will be coming up very, very shortly. So we wait for the drivers to come into the party. RJ, Scott and Darth. We've got RJ in, just waiting on Scott and Darth now. There's Scott, so we'll just wait for Darth and then we'll get going.
I'm here.
Oh, Darth is already here. Okay. In that case, we'll start off with our race winner, RJ. I would say, personally, that is one of the best drives I've seen from you in your entire APPF1 career. I don't know if you'd agree, but what a win.
Yeah, thanks, Ghost. That was definitely luck due to the weather. I also just told myself just to be patient with just the conditions, and it just turned out my pace is pretty good. Had no idea that those inters were going to last 20 plus laps though, so I think pretty fortunate, but also got very lucky. I spun and it got the safety car out, so I was the person who brought it out, so I guess it was kind of lucky on my part, but we'll take it, man.
Yeah, wow, what a recovery. When you put it like that, completely forgot that you were in the wall on lap 4. But what percentage were they at the end? Could you see?
I think I was rounding the final corner. Honestly, I was too locked in with Scott's times at the top left, like a hawk. I thought he was going to get me. But one of my invalidations was actually I was forced off. But anyway, I think I was around like that low 80s, like 82 or 83%. It was insane.
Oh, wow.
I was so worried about a puncture.
Yeah, it could have easily happened. But it seemed like you were on rails. I mean, the tire wear seemed like it sort of capped once you got to about 25-30% on the tires, and then from then on you just seemed to be driving the same way throughout. I don't know if it was the same in the cockpit, but was it a struggle towards the end, or did the tires feel good?
No, the tires, that's definitely true. I just started a break earlier and it ended up, I think I conserved a lot of my tire wear through that. And um, yeah, man, I'm just lucky they lasted that long. But I'm literally like gonna pull a sweat. It's like, I don't know what, it's like 30 degrees Celsius over here. And it is like, my room is so hot. I'm literally gonna pull a sweat sweating. But yeah, it was a good win. I'll take it.
All right. Well, congratulations, RJ. Good to see you back on the top step. First win since Singapore last season. But yeah, what a drive. 23 laps on Inters. Congratulations.
Thanks, Chief. And congrats to the other podium guys as well.
Well, talking of them, we'll move on to Scott in P2. Well, it seemed like for a little while that you were going to charge all the way through and win the race. Couldn't quite do it in the end. Didn't quite have enough. But I mean, what a drive still.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, with about 4 or 5 laps to go, I said to Aces in the chat, I said, I don't think I'm going to do this, but I'm going to give it everything. I was in two minds whether to just kind of take it easy and not bin it, or push and to my limits and risk spinning the car. So I just kept it within the white lines really, and cruised up. So I kind of eased off towards the end, but yeah, no, I enjoyed it. It was great fun coming through. I was going to stay out during that safety car, but I thought I'd come in and change the tyres. I was kind of assuming there could be another one. But no, yeah, GG to RJ. That was a great drive, great strategy. I couldn't catch him in the end.
Yeah, were you surprised after you came into the pit lane for those fresh inters? Were you surprised at just how much faster than everyone ahead of you were? Or was that the very reason that you came in? You knew that it would be like that?
I kind of knew. I thought I was gonna be racing Darth for P2, but I didn't know how old his tyres were. But when I came in, when I stayed out, and I noticed the cars behind me were pitting, I thought I'll take a. I knew they were going to undercut me, but yeah, like you say, I knew I were going to be quicker. But it's the rain in it, and there's no DRS. I was in too mad. I didn't know whether I was going to get up there or not. I thought Rick were going to give me an hard time, but I came behind him after the first DRS and after the chicane, and his back end were. Well, he was doing what he does with the back end, and I thought, he's struggling a bit here. I thought, I'm going to get him. But even that, yeah. So 10 laps ago, I thought, RJ, he's going to pit at some point, surely, and I'm just going to be in P1. And he kept going and going. I was like, nah, you can't take them to the end, surely. And fair play to him. But I'm happy with P2, but
yeah,
there's a bit of me that's kind of like, oh.
Yeah, we're all race drivers. We all get that.
Of course.
I'm sure everyone understands, but still, like you say, a fantastic drive. And back on the podium again. How are you feeling for the next few races? Obviously, we've got the big one, Monaco, next week, and then followed by Zandvoort and Monza. Anything that stands out to you in the latter half of this season, or is it just pedal to the metal, let's go?
I like Monza. Monza, I don't want to jinx anything and say I'm pretty confident there. Obviously, I'm not going to say that. But,
you said it now. It's too late.
Yeah. But no, I like Monza. It's just speed, isn't it? Monaco's just taking it easy, innit? I'm quietly confident about Monaco. I quite like the track. We've raced it a few times on Friday night, so it's just whether it's all about quali, though, isn't it? I suppose, and quali is not my strong suit. Out of the 3 that are left, I'd say Zandvoort is my weakest. I cannot come to terms with that track at all. I had no idea what to do. But yeah, we'll see what happens. I wasn't confident about this track, to be honest. When I jumped in a lobby with Lancer before and a bit of practice with him, and kind of found a bit of time. So who knows?
Who knows, indeed. I mean, 3 rounds to go, anything can happen, especially at those 3 tracks. So good luck for the rest of the season, and congrats again today.
Thank you.
And we move on to our P3 finisher, Darth Nihilus. It was a very strategic race, that one, and one which you just didn't really have the pace on those 2 ahead of you at the end. But still, you can't be too upset with another podium.
No, not at all. It's a really good result for me, especially because I've been always rolling in the rain, so. At the end of the day, it's a really positive thing. I also managed not to make any off-track penalties, so it was a really clean race and just managing my own pace. To be honest, RJ did a fantastic job, and with the tires, I didn't know at what point he went ahead, like so far ahead. I don't even know. But congrats to him, and the same to Scott, who had, I think, way fresher tires than me. And yeah, there was a big delta between fresh inters and worn inters. So no, it's fine.
Yeah, well, talking of the inters, I just wanted to ask, because when you came into the pits, was around the same time that around about half the grid, if not more, decided that the wets were the right tire to be on, and they went for the gamble. Was that a thought that entered your mind, the inters versus wets conundrum, or were you always thinking I'm going to go on the inters, and you were surprised that most of other people went for the wets?
Funnily enough, after Tier 1's USA race, we had that really similar conditions.
Yeah.
We had I knew the wets were pretty much useless unless it was really, really raining, and pretty much when I pitted, came pretty much ahead of Lawrence, who had spun me the lap before, because that's why I lost. I was in the lead. Lawrence spun me, and then I decided to go straight into pits to try to gain back some of that time, because I knew the fresher tires would help me with that, and I was surprised at how close the pace between inters and wets were, but at the end of the day, Lawrence just couldn't keep pace with the inters. My guess is that he was overheating the tires like last week we did in Tier 1.
Yeah. Oh, well, I mean, it was a great drive from you nonetheless. But yeah, another podium. I don't know, I can't remember if you said that you're missing a couple of races. I can't remember, or if you're going to make the rest of them. I can't remember now.
No, I'm not making it. This was my last race, really. Even in Tier 2 and Tier 1, I won't be able to make it anymore. So I enjoyed it, and it was important to finish on a high note. I take a pole position and a P3.
Absolutely. Well, it's been brilliant to see you back on track, Darth.
Thanks, man.
In APPF1. Is there a chance you could join back for F1 24, or is it over for a good while now?
It might be over for a little while. Maybe season 2 of F1 24. Maybe I don't know, but that would be in late July, August maybe. But from now onwards, I'm pretty much busy at the time races happen. So yeah, I'm pretty much done, unfortunately.
Oh, that's a shame to hear, but real life comes first, as we all know. So, like I say, brilliant, a pleasure to see you back racing with us again, and hope to see you back on track at some point in the foreseeable future.
Thanks, Ghost, and congrats to Scott and RJ for a good race.
Cheers, mate. GG.
Thanks, amigo.
So that is it for today's race in Tier 2 in France. We've got 3 rounds to go in this championship. Lawrence now leads the championship by 3 points over Jack Alaco. So the 2 Alpines, not an ideal race for them today, but still very close to each other in the standings. As we move into next week, which is the big one, it is our one Monaco Grand Prix of the year in APPF1. So do not miss it. It's going to be a good one. last last year it was a fantastic race, so keep an eye on it, and we'll hope to see you all there. But in the meantime, have a fantastic rest of your week, everyone. Thank you for watching, and we'll be back next week for more Tier 2. Goodbye.